I want to thank you all for coming. It's great to see this many people in here, and it's kind of a thrilling night for us because this has been a big day down here getting this ready. I want to thank Artist Trust for being our beneficiary, our sponsor, co-host for this event. As always, it's my favorite charity in town. They do offer it up. Artist Trust does the good work of supporting artists, and I think that is the thing that galleries share with them. We do it in a little bit different way. We skim a little off the top, but galleries are there in support of artists, and I think the ones who last and last and last and keep this thing going are the ones who do it with some grace. And I want to really acknowledge my colleagues who in this field keep all of us going, and artists living and paying their mortgages and their studio fees and all of those things. I want to acknowledge my co-hosts for this event. Oh, I'm Greg Kucera, by the way. That's my name out there. Sharon, Arnold, and Gail, Gibson, my illustrious co-hosts. This conversation really started with Gary Fagan's conversations with me about the state of the art world, and a conversation that Gary engaged at Town Hall a couple of months ago. But the title and the topic of that seemed pessimistic to many of us. We didn't feel that the end is near. And in talking to Gail and Sharon about this, we wanted to put a little bit more positive spin on this. I'm of the feeling that galleries are experiencing this time of change that everybody else is experiencing. But who's surprised, right? The world changes. And we shouldn't expect that we don't have to change with it to some extent. At the town hall event, there was a fifth chair, and I was so tempted to ask Sharon to come up and take that chair, but it wasn't my event, so I didn't do it. But she seemed like a very natural person to partner with in this, because she's sort of the mayor of the arts world of Georgetown. And Gail Gibson, of my colleagues, is the one who's expressed the most interest in this topic, and so it was very natural to talk to Gail and see if she would join me in this. We are now more diverse as a community than we have ever been, and I'm speaking of Seattle in its general respects and the art world in its very specific respects. I've been engaged in some research for a while, and on the wall to Gail's left, you can be there you are, both of you, doing an excellent job over there. I made a list of all of the galleries that are currently open, and this list got engaged with a conversation with one of my employees, Guy Merrill, who has just recently left our employ for a much better job. And we did a poll of all the galleries that we could think of who are in business and asked them, are there other galleries we're missing? If you look at the list on the left, that's a list of all the galleries that are open, all the galleries that are in Pioneer Square, all the galleries that are outside Pioneer Square. Pioneer Square being for a long time the intersection for the art world here. And then the list on the right is a somewhat longer list, but not too much longer, of all the galleries that have been and come and gone over all these years. And to me, that seems like a very positive thing. If the number of galleries in business right now isn't that much shorter than the list of all the galleries that have opened and closed in, the, say, 40-something years, 40 years since I've been going to galleries when I started as a teenager, I think that tells us something about the way in which this business moves and lasts and changes and adapts. And to me, that seems very important. And I think as long as there are artists out there, there will be people who want to be there in support of artists. It's this very natural, sometimes symbiotic thing, but I think it all works together. As we started to develop the topic for this talk tonight, we thought, God, who are we going to get to moderate this? You know, I needed somebody who knew the field, who actually went to galleries, who knew who the parties were. I needed somebody who could be, you know, blunt when they needed to be and graceful when they needed to be, and, you know, grace under pressure, all of that. And we really felt like, Beth, you're the only one who could really do this for us tonight. So, at first she said no, but then after we blackmailed and waterboarded her, she agreed. And you know, Beth is this amazing force here in the art world. Beth was the co-founder of Suyama Space in 1998. She curated this landmark exhibition space until its closing in 2017, this year. Having served as a museum curator in the Pacific Northwest since 1975, for an entire lifetime at the Cheney Coles Museum in Spokane, and then as curator of the City of Seattle's Portable Art Collection through 2004. Beth works as an independent curator, most recently serving as installation curator for Greg Lundgren's 2016 Out of Sight at the King Street Station. She has served on many regional and national jury panels, museums, and other art organization boards and committees, and has lectured internationally. She has successfully written numerous grants to provide project funding as well as coordinating close to 100 documentary publications. And she is currently editing a book documenting all of the 19 years of Suyama Space programming in yet another book, which has pretty much taken on a whole lifetime to make that happen. I think Jimmy, I think we're gonna need a little more light. You did all look more attractive all of a sudden. So let's just get the program going here. Beth will introduce the candidates, and they can each make their policy statements, and we'll see how long that lasts. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you all for coming. This is an enormous group of people. I'm going to actually steal Jim Harris's question and ask the composition of the audience. Is it mostly artists, or are there some curator, gallery owners out there too? Are they mostly? Put your hand up if you are an artist. This is cool. This is really a wonderful turnout. And thanks to Greg Kucera and Gail Gibson and Sharon Arnold for putting this together. They actually have spent quite a bit of time gleaning information for it, coercing the moderator into agreeing to do it. But I'm, as a curator who has never been in the commercial world, I have always been a curator in the nonprofit world. I actually don't share the concerns of the commercial comments that are going to be made here tonight, but I share everything else, and of primary interest is my interest in artists as the centric subject. For all these years, to me, it was the artist who was the most important thing, and however you got that artist out there, you did it, often being blunt and gracious and whatever Greg said. And I know that all of the panelists agree in the same way. I just wanted to say that because I am a moderator and can't enter into the conversation. I wanted to say that, and I also wanted to suggest that the basic problem that we all share is the lack of art education in the general community, in our educational system. It's sort of like that is the root problem. The educational system is sending kids out who have no clue, no inclination, no interest in the arts because they don't know that it is something that nurtures their lives. So we all start from that bottom line of attempting to take a whole group of general population and convince them that the arts is what you really need in your life. And we do it all in different ways. So I think that I would like to, I'm going to just, as I introduce, I'll be reading all the introductions, but I wanted to just say that there's a whole lot of topics that are going to be discussed tonight. Some of them are, one of the main ones, and Gail Gibson is the one who threw this out, was why do you choose to show art? And I think that that's something that you all kind of might want to comment about. Is it to provide artists exposure and voice? Is it to enlighten the public? Is it to establish a forum for discussion and dissemination of information? Is it to receive personal satisfaction? Or to be a part of the community and have artist friends? Or to encourage, I love this one, or to encourage financial gain? So I guess what do you aspire to in the long run? This is something that is really important, is to really think it through before you jump in and decide you want to show art or be an artist. Is what do you want for the long run? We're interested in hearing about the diversity of the art spaces and the range of business models that are used to facilitate the collaboration with the artists. So finally, filtering through all our concerns and requests, keep asking yourself, what can I do and what will I do about it? So the panelists, I will introduce, and because my list is not in order of where we're sitting, well, they start out with Jim Harris. Jim Harris is the owner and director of the James Harris Gallery. Founded in 1999, the gallery focuses on showing contemporary painting, drawing, photography, sculpture, video, and installation. The gallery prides itself on exhibiting Northwest, national, and international artists. By placing work in an international context, the gallery strives to promote its artists beyond the region. Our ongoing policy, he said, is to develop emerging artist careers, showcase mid-career artists, and curate thematic group exhibitions which encourage, which emphasize an art historical dialogue. I also need to comment, I think Jim has the best eye for actual installing work of any of us. You go in, you look at his work, but if you back off and look at the way the work is installed, it's really even more cool. Brendan Kiley with the Seattle Times. I really encouraged Greg to keep pursuing Brendan's participation in this because I think that he, number one, might find it interesting to see how many people there are in the art world who are really vividly interested in pursuing the work and expressing what they need to express. Brendan was a writer for The Stranger, for...
Feel free to boo whenever you want for that. For The Stranger or The Times or me or whatever.
Yeah, well, this is one of the issues that keeps coming up. Brendan, he writes for the Seattle Times. He's been... Is there feedback? Am I hearing the feedback? It's good. Okay. He was a child actor in New Orleans and collaborated on experimental theater in New York City with Reggie Watts and Tommy Smith. Written for a ton of publications about arts and international politics. And he's co-organized the Smoke Farm Symposium, which I didn't know that. That's really...
I'll tell you all about it.
Yeah, I've been there. It's good.
Oh, you had been? Okay.
Because of John Boylan, which has brought international artists and intellectuals for almost a decade to a former dairy farm outside of Arlington. His concern, and I didn't ask, Sharon Arnold put all this together. She asked each one of the panelists to please provide a bio, as well as ask them one main concern that I could also lay out there. So thank you to Sharon for doing this. And now you're all going to get to hear your concerns. Brendan's concern is rents are a huge issue for everyone, both in terms of space and where to live to be close to the action. The solution? Political pressure for more mass transit, which disperses economic pressure, centralized in certain neighborhoods. But the art brats, and I use that term affectionately, will always find a way. Bands playing shows in someone's backyard, pop-up galleries, bar theaters, etc., won't disappear. The blue chip institutions may fall, like the Intiman Theater, but the artists have always managed to find some new crack in the infrastructure to inhabit. Tariqa Waters with Martyr sauce. Over here with a fan, trying to get cool. Tariqa is a visual artist, alternative gallerist, curator, and educator. Born in Richmond, Virginia, she's exhibited her work throughout the country. Really?
This one is better.
Okay. Waters is committed to providing a creative platform for other artists through First Thursday openings, exhibitions, performances at Martyr Sauce, which is a renegade gallery and platform for generating press and attention for marginalized perspectives. Martyr Sauce was recently featured in the 2017 spring issues of French Rolling Stone and Madame Figaro magazine. Waters expanded her creative platform with co-curator Jonathan Moore, a series of exhibitions showcasing the work of Black Seattle artists at the Paramount Theater in 2016. Her concern is, which I loved, I thought this was really great. She addresses any concerns she may have for the art community by working to position herself and her work as a solution to the problem.
We can all go home. Move this one. I think we need to move this.
Maybe that's...
I'm on it. Yeah, okay.
Oh, I bet that's it.
Not anymore.
Yeah. Dawna Holloway with Studio E, over here. Dawna shares her lifelong passion for art, her 20 years residence in Georgetown, and the serendipitous evolution of her lighting company, which is East Bay Sculpture and Lighting, into a gallery space.
It's a performance, don't worry.
If you hold it up here, maybe do you get as much feedback?
Well, this is turned off.
Put them in their stand, facing, cut off all the other ones. Put them in their stand, facing.
Strawberry. Do it.
I can still hear it, but. Studio E provides a contemporary art space committed to exploring new territories in creative expression through diverse program of exhibitions, talks, and temporary in situ projects, as well as pop-up installations on Capitol Hill. What started as an exercise in creative space for artists to stretch the definitions of their own work has become a project for creating place and relationships. Studio E is something of a commercial gallery with a creative flexibility of an alternative space. Her concern is the difficulty in bridging the divide between different groups and individuals who are doing great work but aren't always reaching the audiences they deserve. I think some better centralized platform for connecting diverse audiences would help, and it would seem odd that such a thing doesn't really already exist despite the good things that City Arts and Vanguard are doing. I certainly think group conversations like this are platforms for the kind of connection that needs to be happening. And I agree with that. I think this is the kind of thing that should happen every 6 months or even fewer or more frequent times. Robert Yoder with Season. Robert is a nationally exhibited artist whose work has been included in numerous solo and group shows across America and Europe, as well as public collections for many major institutions. He has received a Polly Krasner Foundation Grant, an Artist Trust Fellowship Award, and a UW School of Art Alumni Award. Robert formed Season, which is the gallery that is in his home, as a platform for conversation among artists, critics, curators, and collectors in relation to focusing upon under-recognized local artists as well as to bring national and international artists to a Northwest audience. The gallery produces 4 3-month shows a year featuring artists at any stage in their career, in any media. Season has successfully participated in national art fairs since its inception in 2010, including the Seattle Art Fair since it began in 2015. Robert will present 2 Seattle artists this year at the Seattle Art Fair. His concern is really, I think, spot on. Artists aren't curious of other artists. Curators aren't curious of local talent. Collectors aren't curious to find new artists. Writers aren't curious to discover new spaces and artists. Everyone is, quote, too busy and too tired, and this leads me to wonder if there is a general expectation that someone else will do it. Yeah. S. Service, who is right next to Robert, is with the Alice. It is a Seattle-based curator, designer, critic, and writer on the public consequences of design, architecture, and art. Surface is currently a curator with Alice Contemporary Art Space and Writer's Residency in Georgetown, and serves on the Seattle Arts Commission and on the board of directors of Architects, Designers, and Planners for Social Responsibility. As program director of design in the public in 2015 and 16, Surface organized the annual citywide Seattle Design Festival and curated exhibitions at the Center for the Architecture and Design. The Alice is run by a curatorial collective of 6 artists and writers: Julia Freeman, Satpreet Kalon, Molly Mack, Natalie Martinez, Dan Paz, and S. Surface. The collective presents new work and experimental projects by Pacific Northwest national and international artists with a preference for work that has a strong physicality. The Alice is a space where artists, writers, thinkers and makers can create community and dialogue through contemporary art, curatorial opportunities, and alternative modes of production. It is, as you probably all know, located in the Georgetown area. The concern of the 4 of the 6 members who provided 3 pages of individual concerns, which I won't read, but they do include issues of no transparency in finances, marginalized community issues, no art writing, real estate costs, local arts funding, often project-based versus sustaining, which is, I think, an issue. Many institutional awards, exhibitions funded by and catered to select collectors and their collections, and many more. I'm hopeful S-Surface can further share the other 3 pages. Julia Greenway, here in the middle, with Interstitial. Originally from Detroit, Julia Greenway began her curatorial practice with Interstitial, a contemporary new media gallery in Georgetown. Her work focuses on how digital media influences the aesthetic presentation of gender, economics, and environment. 5 years ago, she began work with Kira Brugge to create venues in which new media artists could receive the maximum amount of curatorial support. Subsequently, she has staged numerous exhibitions in Seattle spaces, including Bumbershoot and the Seattle Storefronts Project. Since 2015, Interstitial has hosted up to 20 solo exhibitions by local, national, and international new media artists. In 2016, Greenway undertook a month-long term of research and networking in Shanghai and Hong Kong through the New Foundation Seattle as part of the New Fellows Program. As of 2017, she has launched 7 large-scale new media installations for Upstream Music Fest and has been named the 2017-2018 Curator in Residence with Disjecta in Portland, which is great. And her concern is the community's current lack of progressive, diverse, and experimental art content. I believe that this shift in content is necessary in cultivating a new generation of art patronage, work that is necessary to move our community forward. I also meant to say that the Alice, the 6-member creative group, will be the curatorial team that Greg Lundgren has included for this year.
That's not it. Actually, it's just me.
Oh, it's just
Yes,
you?
just me, yeah.
I'm sorry.
3 other curators who are not the Alice. It's Greg, Justin Waterhouse, and one person that I'm not 100% sure they've completely confirmed, but yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry, I have misinformation.
Greg's here, so I hope I said that right.
Congratulations to S. Savage. Okay, so I'm going to just invite, I guess we'll just start with Tariqa, who can then, and just speak to the issues that you would like to speak, and I will give you 3 minutes. And,
can y'all hear me? Can y'all in the back hear me? Can you hear me now? All right. I just don't. Can you hear me?
There's like some,
stand up too?
there's some way back
My
there.
outfits. My trousers are wrinkled. All right. 3 minutes. Let's see what it says. Go for it.
Mic check.
No. You don't know. Nope. I'm not doing it. I wasn't expecting to have to speak so soon. Yeah, I gotta open it up. I really want to know more so about what everybody else has to talk about, and then I'll get in where I fit in. It's an interesting thing to be invited to this panel discussion because I am an artist first, and I'm a bit of a deviant, and and I don't like to follow any of the rules that I was told and through my upbringing that I had to follow in order to become a successful artist. When my family and I, when we moved here to Seattle, we had the fortunate opportunity to take up space with storefront windows. So that was a big deal. I've never in my life ever had a storefront window space connected to a live work space. So immediately I went in with, we got a space. And I would fish out, it was a stairwell. So, what are you gonna do with that, But I would put the feelers out, who's down to show art in a stairwell. And it was interesting because a lot of artists were hungry for, more spaces to exhibit their work. And they didn't care where they showed it. You got the windows, we're on the beat. We're in, I can mess with Greg, mess with Linda Hodges, I can mess with everybody. I had a stairwell, okay? You can't take that away from me. I don't care how you feel about it, I still don't care how you feel about it. That's what I was gonna do, that's what I did. So, and what I also saw was that there were a lot of people in the arts community that were badass, phenomenal artists that weren't in spaces that, I would kind of mosey on into. And created a platform for a lot of artists that, wouldn't normally be seen in major commercial galleries to be seen, to be taken seriously. And through the press and whomever else, I'm like, what the hell are you doing in here? It's a good thing because then we're all a part of the Martyr sauce narrative, which is fun. It's funny. I fancy myself a comic as well. I don't take myself too seriously, and I don't really want to talk anymore. How much fun? I'd rather hear about what y'all want to do, and then we'll talk after this. How about that?
Stand up and help them too?
I guess. I just don't know.
Do you?
I know it's scary.
That's hard to follow you though. You're up there.
You can just grab her by the.
Okay. God. All right. So should I just kind of speak to the topic of my model or what's that? All right. Isn't that outfit? I'm Julia Greenway. I run a space in Georgetown entitled Interstitial, as Beth so graciously introduced. And my curatorial practice is focused on making space for new media experiences for the most part. So I consider Interstitial to be an installation-based space, and I approach that space as cultivating experiences. So it's been a continual goal for the last 2.5 years that I've been in that space to create an environment that's really immersive and that people can kind of find their way up to this weird attic and not know how they got there or why they're there or how they can leave. And I've become and I've been pretty successful in doing that. So that's, but it's really important for me to, my curatorial practice really started because there weren't a lot of venues for young emerging artists to show video and time-based media works. So Kira Burge and I began mobile space and a pop-up space and just kind of scrapping to figure out how we could do that. And then found our way into Georgetown, courtesy of Miss Sharon Arnold, the Queen, which would be down there if it wasn't for her and giving me space to be there. I've been really thankful to be down and be a part of that community in the Hamilton building. So I'm in the same building as the Alice and as Bridge Productions. So there's 3 fairly young galleries in the Georgetown building of the Hamilton building, and we are a really strong, cultivating, diverse, supportive community. I'm part of that, so I'm a little bit biased, but that's what I feel. And I think that there's a lot of diversity in our programming, and we each have different models, and we each are cultivating different spaces. So I'm excited and honored to be a part of that collection of gallerists. So, and I'm happy to be here. I'm happy to be here post the town hall discussion. I feel like this is really good to make space for a more young group of voices in what our community is building and cultivating. So Yeah. Okay. Thank you. You're welcome.
I'm Jim Harris, and I think the big question for me is audience, and I think what struck me the most is what Robert Yoder said about audience and looking. I know I'm a big looker. I try to see most every single show in Pioneer Square. I have not been to Tariq's space. I'm sorry about that. And you know, after this, I will definitely come by and look, and I apologize for that. But I do go to I also want to say I love going to Georgetown. There's some amazing things happening there, and this is what I want to talk about audience. So when Beth asked that question, how many of you are artists, and you raised your hand, I want to know how many of you have gone to Georgetown and looked. Yay. Okay, as collectors, and I know there's a couple of collectors in here, I'm encouraging you to go down and look there too, because, you know, I look everywhere, and a lot of times I don't find things I like, but I learn something. And I learn something about, you know, maybe I hate something, and maybe I don't get along with that dealer. But I go and I look and I try to learn something. And if every one of us did that here, it would make our community better. It would make you as an artist better. I also want to ask you, how many of you guys go to the Henry, the Fry, and Seattle Art Museum? Okay, everyone in this community should have their hand up for this, because you have to go and look. Even if it's a show about old masters, when I go somewhere, I look at every little object I can find. To me, as a creative person, and I'm not an artist, I never wanted to be an artist, I think that job should be left for someone who can make great things. I'm not that kind of person. So I really feel that we need to strengthen our audience. Since 2008, there's been a huge shift in the market. Also, there's been a rise of social media, which has sort of dropped from people coming into galleries because they could see things online. So I do think that there's a big problem with participation in the local scene. And we all need to kind of figure out a way to galvanize that scene together and get people to pay attention to our spaces. I totally believe in exhibition spaces, because you have to give an artist a show, and not, you know, I've represented some artists since the beginning, since I opened in 1999 for the long haul, and not all of their shows have been great, but you stick with them because, you know, they are growing and they need exhibitions to grow and learn from themselves and learn from their mistakes. So I'm a total believer into the white wall space for galleries. I do think it's important to have other alternative spaces, because that feeds the gallery system. It also feeds creativity, it makes artists grow, and I really feel that there needs to be support of those systems through all the artists that partake in those systems and are out there showing their own work and having their own spaces. Robert Yoder is a perfect example. He does amazing things. He's in national art fairs. As an artist, he's a great artist. So, I mean, I think we all need to kind of look at those kind of things and figure out how we can change it, because since 2008, foot traffic is really downhill. Rents are up. It's hard to get people in the door. And I think part of that is the local museum support. The Seattle Art Museum has always had a problem for me. When I first opened up here, you know, trustees would come that I knew from Houston, San Francisco, Des Moines, Iowa, New York, and they would come and they would go on these tours of these trustees' homes, and they would look, well, where is your local artist? And a few would have it, but not very many. And that is a problem, because when I go to someone's home in Houston or New York, and alongside their local artists, alongside Richter or Warhol, you do see local artists in their collection. And that is exciting because then you're like, okay, what gallery in town shows this? I'm gonna go look when I'm there. Because I want to learn, and maybe I want to bring that artist. If this collector who has a Richter is showing a local artist, maybe I want to bring that artist to Seattle. So, you know, I thought a lot about the Guerrilla Girls in the 80s and how they really protested museums from not showing women artists. I mean, I believe they started in the 80s, and someone probably can correct me on this, but they started protesting this. They started protesting museums around the country to bring this attention. And maybe that's something we need to do here, is maybe talk about, somehow get these curators' attention to focus on this. Poncho used to have a show at the Seattle Art Museum dedicated to a Northwest artist. There was a program called Poncho. That is gone. I don't think you want to ghettoize Northwest artists. You want to put them in a context that is more national. And I agree that the Poncho thing always had a separate room, and that kind of bugged me, where Northwest artists should be integrated into the collection. The Henry was much more, from maybe like 2000 to 2008, they would do exhibitions and include many more local artists. So somehow all of us here have to have more dialogue and get more people involved to open up that dialogue. And there are collectors in town that have spaces like Mad Art, and so we need to sort of think about how can we leverage the Millimans to partake in this and get those their friends to come and listen to us and talk about how great visual culture is. Okay, I'm off. I could go on for hours, but.
It comes back.
She's right on board.
Is this one okay? I think Jim said a lot of things that I would really.
Possible for the speaker to stand, it really helps for the people.
I think Jim said a lot of things that I would love to piggyback on, but I'm not going to. Right now, I'm just going to talk about my main concern, which is a lack of curiosity amongst every single one of us, and it's got to stop. We need to visit more studios, and we need to expect our curators to visit more studios, and we need to, our other gallery owners need to go to other galleries. They need to go to other studios. Everybody needs to participate. It seems pretty frustrating to put on a show and, I don't know, have 8 people show up at the opening. And then that show runs for 3 months and a lot of people end up turning out. But it's that opening day when the artist is present and you want them to be seen in their best light and you want their work to be seen. And it seems like so often there's this, I can't go to Pioneer Square because it's so hard to park. And I can't go there because there's street people. Or I can't go up to Ravenna Boulevard because I have to go across a bridge or something. And the whole thing gets really frustrating, and it sounds very lazy to me. And I know I'm guilty of it. I know I've put off doing things. I'm gonna get better at it, and I really just hope that everybody here will think for a minute. And if there's a debate on, it's a really beautiful day, should I go to the park, or should I just take a half an hour and drop into the gallery? It's right there on the way. Take the half hour. Just make face, show up, say hi to whoever's sitting at the desk, and just let people know that you are physically interested in seeing stuff. I'm looking at stuff on Instagram all the time, and I know everyone else is, and that makes it really easy. But actually seeing the work in front of you is so dramatically different and so much better. And I personally would appreciate it if everyone just upped their game a little bit more and just kind of got on board and participated just a little bit more. It gets easier the more you do it, the more you want to do it. So that's my rant. Thank you.
I think I'm tied up here. I might be a little sorry, Robert, to push you aside. So, how do I follow all that? I'll start by addressing the Alice's model, which is probably different from the other models here. So, we have some gallerists who are working in a commercial for-profit capacity. They're actually an LLC or some other type of business entity. We have at least Julia, who's running a nonprofit organization. Journalism is not a gallery, but it's a thing. It's also known, it's good. And the Alice, by comparison, is what we have called a for-loss model. We are a collective because we divide the rent among ourselves. Our rent is low because we are in a neighborhood where that still exists, and because we have a preferential landlord who likes renting to artists, which is a privilege that we face and which we confront as a group that's holding space in a city that rent is a contentious issue both on the commercial and residential level. So we all have some other type of job. Some of us are educators, elementary to master's and graduate level. Some of us are barista. Some of us are working artists taking commissions. I myself am all over the place as a curator and part-time architectural designer and photographer. And I wanted to follow all that up with an explanation. Our official premise says that we're essentially a creative incubator with a preference for works that have a strong physicality, and I think we have evolved into something that really is about creating community and questioning the conditions under which art is produced. So, for example, we are concerned about making the artists look great in the show and making sure that they're represented well, that people feel welcome when they come into this space, that it's accessible to people bringing children, families, elders, etc. We're also concerned with things like, if I'm curating this event, can I hire my friend who's unhoused to bartend so they can have $100 at night? So we're really dealing with a wide range of concerns, from what will the collector like to how can what we're doing in our space actually materially benefit artists and people who may or may not be artists in our communities. And I did want to ask, so I saw so many hands for how many of you often go to the Sam, Henry, and the Fry? Raise them up again. How many of you go just as often to the Northwest African Art Museum, to the Seattle Asian Art Museum before it closed for its renovations, to the Wing Luke, etc.? So that's good, but it's not as many. So I just wanted to hold up those institutions and others like them, Tacoma Art Museum, Museum of Glass, etc., Museum of Northwest Art, as other places that we need to have on our map as probably equally blue chip institutions. I'm going on a rant, so I'm going to refer to our 3-page long thing, which Sharon printed out for us. Something that I personally, and I think we've had conversations in the Alice about these issues, is rent. And I think as a commercial space, we share a lot of solidarity with other businesses that are also concerned with their own viability right now, such as mom and pops, restaurants, things that are subject to rent increases that may struggle to hold space. Now, unlike those business models, you have the cafe where people casually walk in off the street and buy a drink or sandwich. Art galleries tend to sell fewer items at a higher price. A lot of those sales are really relationship-based, so they're about cultivating a buyer versus someone sort of casually walking in and being like, I want one of those. It takes a long time. It's a totally different situation. Likewise, artists are a form of small manufacture. If you have a studio that isn't strictly your home, you are renting commercial space, but many artists are often renting that at their loss. They'll work some other job to pay for the work that they really want to do. Artists, musicians, dancers, performers, etc. And so they're dealing with a very different scope of financial needs and social ecologies, constraints of time, how to maintain work-life balance, etc. So those are things that really come up for us a lot as we are curating, selecting who we feature and why, and in what way we do so. So I think I will leave it to that, but I also wanted to shout out again Julia and Sharon, who are, the Atlas actually is in Sharon's former space, LWH, and we would not have it, like we literally would not have it without her because she built it out and put in the track lighting, and then told us, or our predecessors, that it was available. So that's that, and we've also had wonderful collaborations with Dawna at Studio E, so it's great that you're following up. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Dawna from Studio E, also in Georgetown. I see a lot of familiar faces, so I know some of you guys have been down. We're also, did you say you're not going to go to Georgetown?
Me?
Yeah, that's.
I love Georgetown.
Oh, I thought you said I'm not going to go to Georgetown. Okay, so Studio E is a little bit off the beaten path from the heart of where the other three galleries are, right in the heart of Georgetown, across from the coffee shop. But we, one of the benefits of our neighborhood is that you can still park right out front for free for as long as you want. And the other benefit is we have, we are having a little bit of a variety of spaces down there. So we have Sam Ferrazino is started a really fantastic Equinox artist studios that have just been growing and growing and growing. And there's Tammy Spears has an alternate space in her home, and she brings she brings a number of collectors that I don't think would have found Georgetown without her. A completely different model, very casual in her backyard with drinks and lots of plants, and you know, you can see a Faye Jones, you can see all kinds of things in her space in a different environment that I think brings people that maybe aren't normal collectors to view art and appreciate it and feel comfortable with it. So there's a lot of different attempts happening in Georgetown. We happen to have a space that I like to think of as, and I've been told, that is a little bit like something you might see in Chelsea. It's a nice white box gallery space, and we're fortunate to have that. But coming, I started having exhibits sort of spontaneously, without realizing, coming from way outside of the historical context that everyone else has in Seattle and the arts. It was, the surprising thing in some ways was how long it has taken me to get the word out about what we're doing. I have a space, I have fantastic artists, and we have a really excellent opportunity to exhibit art, but it's been very hard to get the word out. And I know a lot of that is just coming at it from the outside. But what's become interesting to me since opening the space has been those long-term relationships that build with artists and helping them and seeing. So although it's hard to get the word out, it's also, like other people have mentioned, there are so many artists that don't have the same opportunities to show. So it's also been very easy in some ways to put together fantastic programming and people have helped with on many levels. And Studio E wouldn't exist if it weren't for the artists. There are artists in town that do the photography. There are artists in town that do the graphic art. There are artists in town that have given the guest lectures. Basically, I like to say it's a little bit like a co-op with a dictator. So that's our space, and I'm not sure. We have been, as we've been open, almost going on 3 years this summer. We've just been figuring out what it is we can do to further the careers of the artists that we work with, and it's been a steep learning curve. And talking about models, I'm a little bit like the Alice in the sense that we have day jobs. So we're only open 2 days a week, and then we participate with Georgetown Art Attack. And if you do make it to Georgetown, Sam also, who runs Equinox, has a little bus. So you can park anywhere in Georgetown, and he loops around to the strip and then comes back around to our space. So you can, the great thing about Sam is he knows what's going on and talks about all of the exhibits and different artists. So I encourage everyone to come to Georgetown, but I also know that a lot of you are already big supporters, and I feel like one of the difficulties is getting new people. I think what Beth said about education is going right to the core of the problem. I think what we try to do is just create a comfortable environment for whomever that comes into this space, and trying to learn how to get the word out a little bit more to those that don't know about us. So thank you.
Hi, I'm Brendan. I'm just a dirtbag journalist, and I think the only reason I'm here is because I was at like the very bottom of Greg's dance card, and everyone else like showed up and or said no, so that's why I'm here. I'm a journalist by accident, but I love that accident. I love getting to know artists. I love spending long periods of time with work, whether it's performance or whether it's physical work. And I worked at The Stranger for a long time and got to know a lot of different milieus around the city. Then I work at the Seattle Times now, have for about a year or so. You know, and I'm an endangered species. I mean, in 5 years from now, there probably won't be one of me. And a lot of people like me are gone. They are laid off, took buyouts, they're fired, they're whatever. So I'm here to be your punching bag about how bad the press is and how stupid we are, which I accept. But also know that in 5 years, you might not have a damn punching bag. So, you know, get it all out now. Do you have any questions? I was just going to make it short, but if anyone has questions. No? All right, I was born in Alaska, but I grew up all around the country, lived in Louisiana, Texas, Southern Virginia. Yeah, okay. I was from a military family, but we spent a lot of time in the South. So, all right. Anybody else? All right, good. Next step.
Let me just say, we're an hour into this, and we have yet to hear from our moderators' questions, and you know, we're going to move on to that right now. But let me say, when you got your ticket, we asked the Artist Trust folks to give everybody a little card, and if you have a burning question you'd like to ask, we'd like you to write it down, and we'll pass a box. Gail is going to do that, and try to come up with some questions from the audience. But now let's move on to Beth's questions and get this thing going.
What I'd really like to see happen is I feel it's really important to have communication. We are nothing if we aren't communicating with one another about all of our concerns and issues. And what I'd really like to see happen is the panelists, you don't need to hear my questions. I think what you really would benefit from is the dialogue between this very diverse group of people and the questions that, I mean, I can throw some questions out that will get them started, but I really would like to have a direct back and forth with the group that we have assembled here. And then I would like to, I mean, at that point, then we will read the cards that do you have cards that the audience will provide? And then we can respond to that. For instance, let's just start with some of the questions I do have, but just jump in and take it on your own. How do you feel that your operations actually help artists?
Okay. I think we all, everyone on this panel does it in their own way. I kind of mentioned that when Beth introduced me, I used to focus a lot on emerging and mid-career artists. I've kind of moved away from emerging artists right now, and that has to do with real estate. It's sometimes so much easier to sell something for $10,000, $15,000 than it is to sell something for $1,000, and I feel terrible about that. But I think what we're all here for, everyone who has an exhibition space, even if it's like an alternative space, is we're there to kind of guide and advise. And I mean, I've had, when I first started, working with some artists, they would come in and like want their work priced at like $8,000, and I'd be like, how do you justify that? So it's really kind of a hands-on, one-on-one dialogue with that artist in the studio and then in the gallery. So, and I do think most of us kind of treat our artists the same way. I mean, do you?
I do. Yeah, I mean, I actually tried to give, I've been kind of thinking of Interstitial as more of a project space, and I try to give artists, I try to give artists an opportunity to do something more experimental in my space. To say like, here's these walls, here's the key, I'm gonna come by and check on you, good luck. And just give them opportunity, and even artists that are maybe more object makers or more commercial galleries, they can come and show with me and do something that is more experimental or more installation based. So I try to, and I provide them with a lot of support to do that. So I will provide grant funding, or I'll help them install a show. Because I know that the artists do need that support to do that, to execute an exhibition, because a lot of the times the ideas can't always be executed. So I really take pride in helping make that possible for the artists that I work with. But also, I'll also show an artist from China and be like, just email me and I'll install your show, because this has to be in Seattle right now. So I've done that as well. So it's pretty diverse.
I have a question that a number of your galleries are open one day a week. And it sometimes is frustrating to come to see the show and discover that it's not open. I mean, there are several of you. Do you want to address that issue?
I would like to.
Yeah, I'll talk about it too.
You go.
My space is, for those in the back, y'all are just listening to us, ain't you? My space is by appointment only. And I do that because I have moved from the stairway and I have relocated into what is now, what used to be Bud's Jazz Record Store. I throw to that. I wasn't here in 2008 when it shut down, but a lot of you were, maybe, or maybe not. So I just throw that as a landmark. And I'm underground now. So I've gone from having a stairway with storefront windows to now being underground with no visibility at all. It was the same thing when I was in the stairway. I had to be open by appointment only. I live in this beautiful city, Pioneer Square neighborhood. That has changed. I moved here, 2011, and it has changed, what year was that? 12. And it's changed a lot in that short period of time. The neighborhood, being in the city, sometimes does not lend itself to me being open during business hours, especially when I can't bank on people just rolling through and wanting to, have a look. I do work as well. I freelance, I work on the corner sometimes, just, whatever I have to do to make ends meet. And I have issues with folks wanting to do the most in front of my space. And my husband and I, we're both artists. My husband's a musician, so when he's gone, I am by appointment only for the most part, unless it's a nice day and I want to sit outside. I think that when you're talking about people coming into spaces and making it a point to show up, I would like to know that you are making it a point to show up. Give me a ring and let me know that you're coming. I don't want to sit by and just wait for that possibility, because what I've noticed here in this neighborhood, specifically because I'm surrounded by so many commercial galleries, that there isn't that much foot traffic. I don't care who you are. I haven't seen on a random Tuesday it packed with folks just coming to view art. So financially, I don't know how that makes sense to have operating business hours. And it's your responsibility.
And to put that into perspective, so the Alice Gallery, there's 6 of us, right? A quick mental math with our rent, being what it is, and each of us putting a little out-of-pocket costs into each show, our annual operating expenses are probably $10,000 a year. Our annual revenue, last year I think was around $5,000 to $8,000, and so far I think this year we've sold about $11,000 worth of work, and of those numbers, half of that goes back to the artist. So as you can see, we're not paying our salaries from that. So when we sit in the gallery, we are contributing our labor and our time, and so it is subject to our availability. And that said, we are open regularly on Saturdays, and we are also open by appointment. So if someone did want to email us or just be like, hey, I'm around, if somebody was around, we would totally let you in. And we love taking people in one-on-one. Don't have to be a collector, don't have to be a journalist, could just be whoever wants to come check it out. And we do events here and there that are on different times and days of the week than Saturday. But for us, it's pretty much just like we're all contributing a lot of our own time, curating, writing, publicizing, sitting in the gallery, hanging the show, etc. So it's really just a matter of that. We show a mix of work that's pretty attractive to certain collectors and a mix of work that's really experimental and is maybe meant to be more exploratory, and it'd be very hard to figure out how someone would physically buy certain things that we've shown. They might be site-specific, they might be durational, they might be strange. But going back to the question of how it benefits the artist, it does benefit them when they make a sale, but also it's like Julia's brought up, the experimental and testing their capabilities and having the opportunity to feel supported and also to get feedback as they're doing it. And in the case of certain shows, I think when we do group shows, quite a few of us curators take it as an opportunity to introduce the artists to each other and to create communities in these shows. An example is our current exhibit that's up right now, which was Sapri Kalan's first show, both with the Alice and as a curator of an exhibition. And she created an exhibit that is couplings or even trios of artists in family groups. So it's a matrilineal lineage. Typically the artist will be a woman working with their mother and or grandmother. Often the mothers and grandmothers are what we would consider traditional craftspeople, and they're hung side by side in the gallery. Commissioned a poet to write a poem in response to each grouping of familial members, and so the artists have connected to their families, recontextualized their ancestors' work, their heritage's work. I think most of the artists, if not all of them, are artists of color from around the world. So it's done a lot of, I think maybe we do just a lot of emotional labor with and for artists. And I don't know if that's always beneficial, but we hope that sometimes it is. Yeah.
Just to go one more step,
Use the mic, because people.
This mic is less annoying than the other ones. I think it's okay.
because it just has
You just
feedback.
have one mic on that table that's turned on, pass it back.
Okay, that's right. Just to take it one step further, I've often wondered how the artist feels about the work that they have gone to great effort to create and then to have be shown.
Some of them are here, if any of you would like to pipe
Maybe we
up.
could ask them. But I just, so much work goes into the actual creation of the work and the mounting of the work, and then to have the shows only open one day a week in the afternoon. I'm just curious as to how the artists feel about that.
Can I take that one? I'm open by appointment only, period. I don't have any set hours at all. I'll do a opening reception on a Sunday afternoon, and then it's appointment only afterwards. I work 3 to 4 days at a day job. I also have my own painting I want to try to deal with. And then there's always something to do with the gallery. So I'm appointment only, and I love knowing that someone is coming because they want to see something. That's very exciting. Everything I show, because of the fact it's in my house. It's the living room and the dining room of the house. So I do have a little bit of luxury of being really selfish with what I show, and so I only show what I really get excited about. And if you're coming in, I don't look at you when you come in thinking, how much are you going to want to buy? What can I sell you? What can I, put in your back of your car right now? I'm more interested in talking to you about what's going on with the work, showing you another new artist. Maybe you'll come back for another show, maybe you'll come back for another, then maybe you'll want to dip your toe into buying something. That's fine. I'm not trying to push something into you. However, I think my web presence and my whatever social footstep makes it look like it's not a living room or a dining room. I don't do any kind of installation shots that let you know that. So whenever I talk to artists about doing a show with them, I'm really hesitant and scared and upfront about, this is my living room. There's a fireplace over there, there's a dining room table right there, and everything else is pretty much out of the house. And this is where I want you to show. There's been a few that are kind of like, no, I want the big white box experience. There's a few artists that I would love to show, but I don't have the space for it. It's fantastic work. It's going to look really bad in my space. So with them, I'm more interested in finding some kind of pop-up, finding some other different gallery they can show with, something. I love the work and I want it seen. It doesn't have to be seen through me. And then there's other artists that are just super excited about the intimacy of having one painting, the curtains, the fireplace, the dining room table. People come in, they're much more relaxed, much quicker. We have conversations. I think they're going to be here for a half an hour. They're here for an hour and a half. So there's a weird trade-off on making an appointment only. There is a little bit of juggling, and there have been times when I'm just not available on the days that you're available. And that's disappointing. I think an ultimate goal, of course, would be to be making so much money from doing this that I could just sit at the house and wait for people to drop in, or that I could be available 5 days a week. It's not there yet. You mentioned numbers. I'm hesitant to mention numbers, but when we did taxes back in April, I was astounded at the amount of money that the gallery brought in. But then when you look at that divided in half for the artists, and then multiply that by about 3 for the amount of art fairs that you do, it's still totally coming out of pocket. And I think it's coming out of pocket for all of us at some point along the way. And so we really love what we're doing. And I think if you're interested in it, make an appointment, come see us, and we'll just share that enthusiasm with you.
May I add something to this conversation quickly? And also, when I do show artists, I'm not going to stand up again unless y'all want to see me. Perk up a little bit. When I show artists at the space, I also try to make sure that I get them paid. My whole thing, okay, thank you. Can we talk about that for a minute? Okay, because I said I'm an artist first, right? So my whole intent is, and as you can see, I'm a ham. So show as many spaces as possible. And if I'm in a stairway, if I'm underground, and of course now that I have a larger space, my husband's a musician, we like to throw parties and concerts and what have you to get other people into the space, and we like to take advantage of what's going on in the neighborhood. But if I get an opportunity to guest curate in another space where I know that you will have a contract, you will get paid, you will get full, I won't take a commission, you will get full. By the way, that was the Paramount, Theater, and having a platform where I can, through the work that I'm doing out in the city, I can have you there, here at Martyr and anywhere else in the city that I can parlay some of that, you know, clout somewhere else. And I think that as an artist, first, you want to know how to sustain and make sure that you're making money doing what you love to do. Because that's first and foremost what it's, we're all over 30, you know. Some of us, I got kids, you know, we love it for the love of it, but at the same time, it's really important to figure out the best ways to take advantage of all the different, you know, things that kind of come to you as an artist. And there's a lot of humility here in Seattle, which I don't got time for that.
I mean, maybe that's part of the change also, is that we don't have to be holding gallery hours 7 days a week.
People work outside the gallery.
Sure. What was I saying? Okay. Oh, I think that maybe that's part of the shift in our community, is that it's not, maybe we don't have to be open 7 days a week. I mean, I think your question is probably about accessibility, right? Like, do you feel that maybe because of our limited hours, we're not as accessible? Maybe.
I just wanted to throw that out.
Yeah, okay. Well, I mean, sure, yes, if you're only open 1 day a week, you're less accessible than if you're open 7 days a week, definitely. But I think that, like, social media allows these platforms for the work to take another dimension, and that it is, I mean, having a space is both a blessing and a curse. I mean, I sometimes don't know if I am going to make my rent, and that's a big deal. So that's a big part of it, and I think, like, God, why do I even need these walls? But, you know, I think that that's just something that I have to grapple with and deal with with my own practice. But I think that part of the shift is maybe that, I mean, these spaces are changing, our businesses are changing, our ways of getting the work out there are changing also. So, yeah.
Jim, though you are open the full amount, you're full amount. I've heard you speak about how frustrating it is to have a whole day go by and few people come in. Do you want to speak to this too?
Not really, but you know, the world is changing. The world is changing because of a lot of different things. And so people aren't going into Nordstrom. People are not going into J. Crew. There was this great article in today's New York Times about J. Crew. I don't know if anyone read that, but they talked about middle brow and upper middle brow, which was fabulous. People are not coming in, and so it's really about, we should be talking about audience building, and it's fine that people are open 1 day a week. These people are trying to do something innovative here, and we all need to get there. But how do we build this audience so it's not just the artists, and it's, you know, can we pull in those curators? Does every single one of you have a subscription to the Seattle Times so that we have some journalism in this town going on? You know, we have to start thinking about those kinds of things. And I am, my hours are Wednesday through Saturday, but I'm there usually on Tuesday, and I'm usually there on Monday too. So I work all the time. But what else am I going to do? It's something I believe in, something I'm passionate about, but it's, you know, I have seen a drop in attendance since Elliott Bay Books left in 2008. There's no, they were like a cultural spot in Pioneer Square. And now that spot has sort of shifted away, so, you know, there should be a dialogue. We should all be talking about how can we make, bring the audience back. Is it inviting curators and artists to sit down at panels, at galleries, and maybe inviting, you know, the Georgetown galleries up to Pioneer Square, and maybe inviting the Pioneer Square galleries and their artists down to Georgetown? How can we cross-pollinate to build a bigger audience? That should really be the main thing here, because, you know, Greg, Gail, and I all know that foot traffic is way down. It's down in every single city in America. So people don't care about the arts anymore, and partly because there's no critical writing, there's no one to bring it to the attention, there's no visual arts in school anymore, you know, we're one of the wealthiest cities. Do you see these Amazonians and these Facebookers and these people that, work in tech? Are they coming to the gallery? We have to figure out a way to think about how can we bring those people and educate them. So I think education is a big thing.
Thank you. Yeah.
Just quickly jump in and shout out a couple people who have addressed that. John Boylan did an amazing event called 9E2, which I think really brought together the art and tech worlds in a way that connected to a lineage of art addressing those in the past. And also the other awesome Greg in Seattle, Greg Lundgren with Out of Sight, and what he's doing to sort of mix up the attention to the local and the regional artists during the Seattle Art Fair, which is importing international scale galleries and thinkers here.
Taking it one more step, and I hate to sort of say this with Brendan here.
I can't wait.
But we all know that the art writing and the just general media coverage is almost the lifeblood for a lot of the small art venues. And without their getting the message out there, it's almost like non-existent. I think back on the day when you could be on the bus and you could see people reading the newspaper, and they would come across a photograph of an art exhibition. And these are people who perhaps had never even cared about going to a show, and that caught their interest, and they came. At Siama Space for 19 years, when we would have coverage, if there was in the Seattle Times, was when we would be inundated with people who did not have a clue we were even there before, people who couldn't have cared less, all of a sudden saw an image in the paper and went, I think I'll check that out. So I want to address that with all of you. And I want Brendan to jump in because I know that he's on the same page as we are. But I would like to have each one of you talk about the sort of what is your arrangement you have with the media? I know we all use social media, but I'm talking about the general public media. Social media is for people who have, it's a destination. You go to the site because you're looking for it. But for people who don't know what to look for, it has to be through the general. So if all of you could just jump in.
I might start just with a little bit of background on what you just said. I mean, as you are all probably keenly aware, newspapers are going broke. If you picked up a copy of The Stranger 5 years ago and picked up a copy today, it's much thinner. Same as Seattle Weekly, same as Seattle Times. Layoffs, buyouts, the whole nine. And the arts is one of the easiest places to cut for publishers because it's not investigative news like Spotlight, we're gonna get those guys. It's not covering City Hall, which is considered necessary. Newspapers get grants to write about things like education or transportation. So it's really easy for people to say like, oh, well, yeah, theater, who needs it? Screw it. Let's get rid of that guy so we can keep this person over here working the City Hall beat. So that is, I know that you all already know that, but I cannot stress that enough. Newspapers going broke is why you're asking this question, I think. Anyway.
I am probably the least qualified to talk about this. I don't think we've, other than Vanguard magazine, there hasn't been, I have not been able to connect with the little bit of media that we have in Seattle. Yeah, I think I'll pass the torch.
I'll be on this side of the mic. I don't want to knock over this water. We have, the Alice has really ad hoc strategy. We have all the social medias. We're really grateful to have in our community folks like Amanda Manitak and Sharon and Emily Pottis, who are all writing about the arts, Trenton Flock at Vanguard, etc. And as a writer's residency, and so all of the curators are both artists and writers in addition to curating. So we blather on a lot on the internet. I think that helps people at least know where we're coming from. And your topic just gave me some really horrible ideas about how do we get on these other beats. Like, I mean, we have an artist and an urban planner running for mayor right now. Like, there's been stabbings at Art Basel and Art Stolen. Like, I don't know. I should stop. But yeah.
Go.
But
And I didn't
those would be
mean
the
to
wrong
sound so
reasons to get
defensive.
press, but just saying.
I haven't had very much print media, local media coverage. One thing in the Times, there is something that possibly will be coming out very soon in the Times. The Stranger was at my space 5 years ago and never came back since. So I don't really rely on local press. I don't know. I don't see them coming. I see, if anything, I think local press is going to do something like a museum show that has a broad appeal. And I think they'll do that a lot more than they're going to do somebody who's opened up a gallery in their garage in Northgate and is doing a 2-night only show with a keg of beer. That kind of show is more interesting to me, but by the time that gets printed, it's over and done with. So I'm not sure how this, the things that we're doing, I think are a bit more fluid, and I'm not sure if print media can keep up with that in a way that is going to help anybody.
Can I steal the mic back for a second? The Alice has exhibited at least 2 journalists, Ellie DeCola, and then the combination of Kevin Golden and Corinne Chin. So that is another strategy we've used, although they didn't write about their own shows.
I mean, don't we need another solution? Like, obviously our local presses they can only do so much, right? And they're struggling as well. So I talk about this all the time about our lack of arts writing, and I'm kind of sick of it because we've all come to terms with it and accepted it, but we also need to make space for fostering new arts writers in town. And they need a platform, sure, but a blog is a platform. You can print your own zine. There's a lot of opportunities there. So maybe I don't know if that goes back to education or if just there's a general excitement to write about art and to have a critical conversation. And I think that, what Robert's touching on about people showing up more and being more curious, I think that is part of it, that you have to want to write about this shit because nobody's gonna fucking pay you to do it. So you have to really feel that that's important. So I think that if we can just, I don't know what the answer is, but I'm just putting it out there that instead of bitching about it, I would love us to kind of talk about what that solution could look like.
Hey, an agency, I don't know.
What?
There are creative agencies who could help, publicize, their job or to know how to publicize stuff. It might be that we're just bad at it.
Yeah, totally.
Is that it?
Yeah, sure. I don't know. I mean, I think it's just still it's in a seed stage, and we all need to.
And those writers also, they just need as much money as we do.
Mm-hmm. True.
And you can't say
It's
that
true.
we have to write for free.
It's true. You're right. Yes, thank you. Yeah, I apologize. Yeah, you're right about that. Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead. You have to.
I want the mic. I've benefited from a lot of press. My name is Tariqa Waters, and I get a shit ton of press. So let's just talk about that. And initially, I was worried that I was tokenized. And when we talk about spaces and art galleries and where we're going and who we're seeing, and if you're, show of hands, who's been to Martyr sauce? Okay. So. Right, raise your hand if you see me somewhere in the press. Okay, so there. Yeah, I worry about getting tokenized a lot, and in the press. And the other interesting thing that I try to use to my benefit is in the conversations of equity and what it means for a black woman, not a person of color, so don't put me in that thing, a black woman to hold space here in the whitest city, and you know, it's getting whiter, it's just what it is. And I look out, I don't see that many reflections of myself. So when the press, you know, is covering me, I always wonder how far back I have to go so that you could understand who the hell I am to begin with. When you talk to, and the press is out there talking to, you know, any one of you, I feel like there's a camaraderie, you already get it. But for me, I'm not from Seattle. I wasn't born here, I don't have legs here. I came in, my husband and I, two artists, he's more punk rock than me. I like to think I'm more punk, it's just because of him. But, you know, just that whole take on what you do when you land as an artist in a new city. And being a black person in a white city, taking space that is not the same as my counterparts here, and having to define that as something that you will respect. That's the other struggle as well. Oh yeah, it's cute because you're black and you have that stairwell, or how, you know, how can you afford to live here? All the racist questions that I get on a daily basis, all the undertones and the questions throughout the press that I get, how the story, it's all chopped up and botched up because they didn't know what the fuck they were talking about to begin with. Y'all see me, this is how I interview, you know? So this is the problem that I face in conversations like this, because I really don't know, you know, at the end of it all, especially if I'm talking to a room full of artists, you know, what are we getting down with? I mean, we can talk about what you want a gallery to do for you, but at the end of it all, you gotta do it for yourself and figure out how to get down with it. And in a city where it's getting impossible to sustain, the freaks and the, you know, the crazies were in the city, you went downtown to get a little bit of, you know, excitement, culture. You walked into cool mom and pop spaces. Those are few and far between. And I, for damn sure, don't see me, another Rika running around here, and my children see reflections of themselves in the street. So we're talking about holding space as a very privileged platform that we're talking about, and I don't think that this conversation is broad enough. So if you see me with my fan, we'll talk after. You understand? I mean, it's not that cool.
I think unless you want to add more to that, we have some questions from the audience, and some of them are directed to people, like Julia. So I'll just ask you, and then you can respond. Julia, what circumstances led to your invitation to this panel?
Maybe Greg should answer that. I don't know. I think that. Okay, I'll answer why. I guess. I think because I'm hosting. I mean, my space is really, you know, experimental and in a non-commercial capacity. So I feel that what I'm doing is unique in a lot of ways, in that I am creating ephemeral experiences that you can't really buy or take away from or anything. So I think maybe that has part of it. I also yelled at the town hall.
I love it.
Maybe that is why I was yelling at people, and that made me upset. And I did that just because. Not yelling, no. I was very vocal that I felt that what was being coined as alternative spaces didn't have a voice in the conversation. I felt didn't have a voice in the conversation. So I was pretty expressive and animated about that, which is maybe why I'm here. But I love you guys. Thank you for having me.
Whatever the reason, I'm glad you're there. Jim, there's one for Jim. Well, for Jim and Robert, so the two of you. As an artist who splits my time, labor, and expense with you, after listening to you and watching you point the finger at a room full of artists, I wonder why I'm making that split. I wonder what the difference is between your space and my basement when I hear you pass off the responsibility of attendance to anything other than your lack of creating interest. There may be much to learn from fight promoters.
I agree, there probably is a lot to learn from fight promoters. So, I will tell you how I work with my artists and why I want 50%. When you are starting to work with a young artist, it takes probably about 3 or 4 years before you, or maybe even 3 exhibitions before you even get anything back. What I'm trying to do is I am trying to get their name out into the public, beyond Seattle, try to build their reputation, put them in a context, talk to curators about them, really trying to educate my collector base about their work, and really putting as much effort as I can into their career. I really feel I have too many artists to do that right now, because it's so, because the time commitment is, it's a big time commitment. And I feel like I would serve my artists better if I represented less artists and I worked harder for maybe 15 artists instead of 25 artists. I feel like I could get their name out there more and really kind of educate the world about what they're doing in their practice. I think it's, it's really shifted in the gallery scene on getting people to pay attention, to come in and look. And I will tell you, my last exhibition was really difficult for me because I had 5 artists that were in the Whitney, and I could not get any. I got a handful of collectors to come down. I emailed, I called, I tried to get them in to look at their work, nothing. And I had a hard time getting these New York galleries to lend me this work for this exhibition. And then it goes back from Seattle, unsold, and then these galleries start thinking, well, I'm not going to maybe lend something to you because you didn't place that in Seattle. So it is I'm not complaining about the artists here. What I think we all need to discuss is audience building. That is what we all need to discuss, and that is something that we all need to have more panels, but not talk about. We need to talk about creativity. We don't need to talk about why this artist is being shown or that artist. We need to talk about why we are all doing this for a long period of time. I have been doing this since 1984. Greg has been doing it since, I don't know how long. I mean, you can look at this panel, we've probably all been doing it for over 200 years if you add it all up. So we are doing it because we want to support an artist, and we want to try to push their work in front of people, and hopefully they'll buy it. And nothing is more rewarding than when a collector writes you that check knowing that work is going to someone's home. That's more rewarding than anything else, because it shows that artist has made something that person loves. And to me, that's why I do it. I do it because I want someone to buy something, I want to educate them, and I want them to go home with something that's not a poster. I want them to go home with something that's originally made by a maker, I mean, how amazing is that all you people are makers of things? You know, that is something that people, you know, that is getting lost in this world. You know, makers are amazing people. And the collectors that support them are amazing people because they know that they're buying something and they're supporting that artist to buy that. That is another amazing thing. So, you know, I think, you know, it is a bit of a fight out there because we're all being bombarded through our phones. I mean, I forgot my phone today at home and I felt completely naked because I was like, what am I going to do? I don't have my phone. You know, my dad's flying on a plane today. I got to make sure he gets home. You know, so all the stuff. You know, we're all on our phone. We're looking at stuff. We're not talking to people. Do you ever think about putting down your phone and talking to people and getting people here? I mean, that is something that's more important than your phone. So, you know, social media. I like social media and I hate it. You know, you can't look on your computer screen and know what a work of art looks like. You really need that physical presence. And so, damn right I want the 50%, because I'm gonna work for that person.
I've got one here. And so, I guess when I was grumpy about people not participating and wanting you all to do something about that, what I mean is you have to be seen if you're an artist. You can't just exist in your studio basement and make a living at that. So there's some degree of your work has to get out of there and get into the world. If you're a hustler and you can take it around and you can move it and you can sell it and you can raise your prices, I'm all for that. Good, that's great, do it. If you are an introvert, which I'm discovering a lot of artists hate going out. They hate meeting new people and they hate socializing. They'll go to openings, they'll go to a bar and have drinks, and then they'll go to one opening or something. I think the thing that frustrates me is that the artist is still invisible. And if you're someone that we're helping to promote, we're pushing that work in front of other people. We're taking it to other cities. We're trying to sell it to other people. If you can get it into someone's house in another city, they're going to have people come over and see it. Hopefully they'll get interested, it'll come back, and it'll just snowball. I think we all work hard for that, and we all work hard for that 50%, yes. I don't know, I feel often that I'm very eager to cut my commission dramatically to make a sale happen, to get that artist some cash in their pocket. I know how much it took for them materials, I know how much it took for them time, whatever. I know all I gotta do is throw it up on Instagram and maybe somebody's gonna buy it. Admittedly, that's not working very hard, but it took 6 years to get to that point of not having to work that hard. It took 6 years of art fairs to get people in other cities to just recognize that Seattle does have galleries and that they are interested in what's going on over here. When I do fairs in other cities, people will tell me my programming top to bottom, and I'm just like, you're absolutely right, I did do that show. I have little memory of it. And so I think people are paying attention to what's going on out here. And if there's some way that I can help to get someone's work in front of someone who is genuinely interested in it, we don't really have flippers out here. So when people buy work out here, they buy it because they love it. And I get excited when that happens.
So this is a really nice segue into the next question, and the two of you have touched upon it, but the question is, what are various galleries and spaces doing about collector education? So it's one thing to ask for them to come in, but what are you all doing to encourage collectors to come in and begin to become a collector. So if you'd all like to talk about it.
I don't have collectors, but I have patrons. So, look, all I can do is hold my space and really continue to challenge myself and my audience with every turnover of a show. And that's a lot for me. I'm one person, that's a lot. And I just am trying to continue to fight that good fight and be consistent and be nice and welcoming and make sure people can talk to who's ever there. And just being a continual presence and in that this work is important and what I'm doing in the space is important and you should want to be a part of that. And I don't know how to do it other than continuing to do that. I do think that there's a shift that's happening with me because I'm in my third year now where I'm recognizing that I need to kind of do more outreach that way. So more research and more like knocking on people's doors and being like, hey, I think you should come to this show and here's why. So I guess I'm learning that. I mean, I'm a young galleryist, so I'm trying to find that for myself. But I'd love to hear from more experienced people.
Well, Tariqa, I wanted to hear.
I kind of echo the same thing. And raise your hand if you're a collector. Raise your hand if you've been to Martyr sauce. All right, so there you go. I think I know. You've been everywhere. We have a few so I think I'm gonna throw it out to the collectors. Collectors need to go to all of the art galleries and collect the art that you want to collect. I have people who come in and are, they want to just buy it immediately, whatever I have. I'm not an art dealer. I have this thing where I feel like come up, we have this new artist in here. I'm not doing that for you. But I feel like art is a very personal thing for me. And if somebody wants to come in and loves your work, they'll come in and they'll buy it. I'll talk about your work. That's how I do it. But I have a very kind of, I leave that up to whomever's coming into the space to collect. I don't get into the whole, that's what I'm saying. I don't know why I'm here.
Yeah. I'm sorry. As someone who runs a nonprofit educational institution, I don't feel like that's on all y'all.
Thank you.
Like it's not. There are places in Seattle that exist to educate.
Right.
So people go into your spaces with education.
There you go.
But I think that if we ask every space in Seattle to be everything, we run into the problem that Robert is facing. Like the Fry runs classes, Sam runs classes, PCW runs classes, Northwest Film Forum runs classes. There are a lot of places where you can learn about new media, you can learn about old masterpieces, you can learn. I think when we ask our galleries to be everything,
thank you,
that we're missing the point of the hard work that you're doing. I mean, we need the press for that. We have other spaces for that.
There you go.
You know, I agree for them, but I agree that we need, I like the education aspect of it. And one thing that I try to do in the dinner time when it's not so nice is I will try to do I know Greg does the same thing, a Saturday talk with the artist. And I've collaborated with Greg a couple of times on having two artists talk with a curator or some sort of dialogue. And I think it's important to have that voice of the artist talk about their work, because I learned something, and I think the collectors do too. And one thing I also love about those artist talks is that artists come to those talks too. So it's a chance for the artists who are not in the show, but artists to meet other artists, artists to meet the collectors that are at the talk, and kind of have this social gathering. And those social gatherings, I think, are really rigorous and important, because you hear someone talk about why they're making something, and then you have an engaged scholar, and I try to use scholars in my talks, because to me, they are able to draw something out of an artist that maybe another artist can't do, or like with that scholar there, and if there's two artists together, they're able to create a really exciting dialogue. And I've learned something about that every time I do that. I learn something, and I feel like I'm learning something, I know my collectors are learning something. And collectors do come to those, but I do feel that it's hard to get them on a Saturday, one summer shop. And I usually try to do that in the winter.
I just wanted to say we only have a few more minutes. We're trying to end it by 9, but I'd like to have the rest of you also respond to this.
So everybody in the audience should like wiggle and stretch. I can see you're like restless. Everybody in the audience should like wiggle and stretch because you seem restless, and be comfortable.
Just stand up.
So I would say I don't know how to distinguish a collector from a normal person. So my strategy has been to just make the gallery an inviting place for people to visit. We use social media because that's what we have access to and we have a budget for. Occasionally we run ads in the various arts magazines when we're able to. But word of mouth, I think, has been the way that awareness has grown about the artists that we show and the shows that we have. I think my priority opening a space was that the work would be seen, and secondarily that it would be purchased. But primarily, I don't care to make. I think that there's a barrier for people going into a gallery if they think there's an expectation that they'll purchase something, and I've had. I'll invite everyone to come to the gallery, and we are open, 2 days a week, not. We are able to, and we try to be there consistently, exactly on time, and leave not early. So if you do make the trek, we are there. And I remember early on, I was chatting with some SDOT employee in line for coffee, and he was very friendly and easy to talk to. And I said, hey, I have a gallery just a few blocks away. I'm going to open up in a few minutes. You should come check it out. And his demeanor completely changed. He kind of like went white and said, oh, I can't afford anything in there. And at that point in the conversation, he had no idea if I sold $100, mugs, painted mugs, or if I sold Picassos. He just knew that wasn't a place for him. And despite the fact that I argued, it's more like a museum, come look. This gentleman, this blue-collar gentleman, there was no way he was coming into my space. So I think that there are barriers with exhibits, and I think everyone in this room is pretty comfortable entering a gallery, and that's why you're here. But I think broadening that kind of participation is a goal that I have.
I super agree with Dawna. I myself grew up in a family where like artists were weird, and you don't do that, and you can't afford it. It's not for us. And I think a lot of us in our collective are really attuned to those dynamics. In terms of attracting the collectors, we have relationships with some of them, but we aren't really focused on it. And part of that has to do with the transparency when we invite artists to show with us. I think we try to be pretty clear. The line that I personally use when explaining what we are to our artists is, we're a space. We'll give you an exhibition. We're low budget. We don't have a lot of money to put this on, but we have the space. Our rent is what it is. And the 50% is the baseline, but it's negotiable. We tell artists, you're encouraged to sell, but there's no pressure to sell. So if you want to make something and your main goal is to sell it, get out into the world, etc. We support that. And if you want to take this as an opportunity, perhaps to do something off the beaten path, or that you actually have a wall outside our gallery that's literally for artists to do something they have never done before or were afraid to try. So they're invited to make what they will of that based on what they want. And we have an exhibit that has been happening the past 2 December, January. It's called Everyone's In. And that's, it's an open call. Anybody who brings a piece of art to the gallery physically during this time window is exhibited. And this year we tried a new model where the artists decided what the percentage would be that they gave to the gallery, ranging from, I give 100% of the funds to you because I can afford to, and this is my contribution, to I give 0% because I really need the money from the sale if it sells, to everything in between. And we just try to make ourselves open to that conversation. We don't shy away. We in fact had an event called "Is It Rude If I Ask How You Pay the Rent?", which is one of the most common questions we get. And so we just kind of try to leave it open, but we don't promise that we're going to sell, but we encourage it and try to make those connections happen. And on the side of the collector, I personally would love for anybody of any income level to be able to walk away from the Alice, whether it's the piece that comes with Everyone's In, that we commission an illustrator to draw the exhibition and create a visual index that's an art piece in itself, to artworks that have sold in that exhibit for $5, ranging on up to 1,000 times that. So we just, I really admire the work that Sharon Arnold has been doing in the press to inform people about how art collecting works, to create different models of subscriptions to art boxes, she showed work by Davida Ingram where she had community pricing for an edition print that was $45, so a lot of people could access that. And then knowing Davida, probably if you talk to her and you really couldn't afford that, she might work with you on something. So, but then getting to the point where you feel comfortable even having that conversation with the gallery or the artist is a whole other issue that we just sort of try to be open to that.
Would you like to say anything more? Okay, so I think that we need to close. Greg has, Brendan.
This is slightly off the topic of the question that you asked, but Greg was asking me what the media can do, even in its weakened state, and maybe its intellectually vacant state, and I'm guilty as charged. What we can do inside newspapers is continue to advocate for coverage. It's kind of as basic as that, and advocate for editors and publishers to put resources towards coverage and to have conversations with people in other departments, whether it's sports, whether it's the city desk, whatever. So, because, some of the old dog journalists, they think of the arts as like totally dispensable, stupid, boring, not interesting. And I do everything I can at the Seattle Times to engage people to talk about theater. Like, you gotta see this show, it's amazing. And I get really excited when someone reads an article of a preview I've written who is not considered a normal, usual arts patron, who says, wow, that sounds really great. Dina Martina, I should go check her out. That's a gratifying moment for me. I think outside of newspapers, what folks like yourselves can do is make noise and say, we need this. Whether you hate the critic or like the critic or agree with the critic or disagree with the critic, it doesn't really matter. But if editors and publishers aren't hearing people say, we need this, because they're in triage mode right now out there. So, whatever you can do on that score. And I'm not saying go out and buy a subscription to the Seattle Times. But what I am saying is, if you value it, make it known that you value it.
Thank you, Brendan. I think that we all need to keep that in mind and make as much noise to the papers as possible. But I think we also need to think about how we all can do everything together. I feel really strongly that communication is really what gets us by. So if you are finding issues that you want to discuss it with all of you. Be aware that there's this whole network of people out there trying to do the same thing, wanting to have help, wanting to have supporters, collectors, whatever. Just do it together. And while you're doing it, say, what can I do to make it better? Thank you all for coming, and thank you for the panelists and their attention.